This is the lecture for Chapter 9, Phonological Alterations. The key things that I want to have you get out of this chapter are the definitions. We're going to go through the definitions at the end. Hopefully, I might have to do it in a second video. But pretty much the phonological alterations, there's phonemic representation, phonological rules, and then the phonetic representation, which we've already talked about. The rules are kind of the glue between those two. The phonological rules get us from the underlying phonemic representation of the sound to the surface or the phonetic representation. So what is the underlying form? If you look at the phoneme V, and sometimes it's nasalized when it precedes an N. I think that's what all that means. So here's again that chart to practice. So step 1, are there minimal pairs? Yes, they are different phonemes and going on through the process. There are alterations, processes, and rules. Alterations are the underlying representation, the phonemic, and the, as well as the surface form or the phonetic. It can happen on both levels. Could be due to phonological processes. Phonological processing include things as aspiration, nasalization, velarization. Now, in speech-language pathology, we use the term phonological processes to describe disordered speech and the process that they do to change that. So, fronting, think about that. They front, the production goes from the back to the front. So, velars become alveolars. Another one is liquids go to L and R go to W. So that is another process that we talk about in speech language, but these are a little bit different. Rules, they capture the phonological process. In some ways they are, some ways they're not, that result in alterations. I just wanted to give you a perspective of how we use phonological processes within speech language. Some of this is native speaker intuition. You've heard the language for so long, you know when you learn a new word how to say that because you already have a background in that language. There are 3 types of alterations: phonetically conditioned, phonetically and morphologically conditioned, phonetically, morphologically, and lexically conditioned. So phonetically is the phonemes. Morphologically is the smallest piece of information that will change the meaning. So a morpheme might be the plural S, like in dogs. That is, or an ED or an ING. Those actually change the meaning of the word. Lexically conditioned would definitely be meaning. So some phonetically conditioned alterations include they tend to be triggered by the phonetic environment, and they are obligatory. It always happens that way. Aspiration, nasalization, homorganic nasals, tapping, velarization of L, velar fronting, which we talked about. That is a process very common to kids under the age of 3. If it persists past 3, it is not uncommon anymore, and we actually treat that. Dentalization. Phonetically and morphologically conditioned alterations. Phonetic environment and morphological structure interact with each other, thus the name. English plural morpheme. So we're going to talk more about that plural morpheme of S or S. Word internal morpheme boundaries. You add S for plurals, depends on the last sound in the noun stem. So actually, when you were probably in 2nd, 3rd, 4th grade, you worked on adding S and ES and learning how to do that to the noun stems. So there's 3 allomorphs: cats, dogs, and horses. So cats, you hear the S sound. Dogs, it becomes voiced because of the voiced G. And horses, you just add an S, but there are times where you add the ES. Then there's different things like fence and base. Also, English past tense. ED is another morphological and phonetically conditioned alteration. Then we have the phonological, morphological, and lexical condition alterations. They only occur with a particular set of lexical items, and they're not productive. Often the result of fossilized processes, which to me means old, fossilized, that used to be productive. So plural form, life versus lives, but chiefs might be different. House, houses, but basis is a bit different. Another one is the velar softening, the difference between electric and electricity. You soften that velar production. Then there's also vowel shifting. You actually shift some vowels when you change the word. Reptile versus reptilian. You're not saying isle, you're saying ilian. Becomes an E sound. Now we're getting into the definitions. Suppletion. I actually could say that before the video is turned on. Alterations with no phonological basis. This is our plurals that we actually change the name or the form entirely. Instead of saying mouses, you say mice. Gooses, you say geese. Go, went, see, saw. Those are supplation, and there really is no basis for, there's no rule base for those changes. Moral rule writing. I'm gonna stop and start at this again.